This is Red Corner, Blue Corner, right here on Stadium, and y'all know what week it is. We are coming up toward the game, and guess what, y'all? Just 3 days left. I know my intensity has been turned up, Jake, and quite frankly, I think this might be it for our friendship for the week.
Yeah, that's understandable. I'm okay with that, and it's at the point where we're counting by hours.
Yeah,
we're less than 70 hours away at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, we're cooking.
Yeah, we are cooking. That is Jake Butt, Michigan Wolverine All-American tight end. He's repping his school today.
This is Joshua Perry, also repping his school, who he happened to be a captain for and a national champion from.
Yeah. Got the starter jacket on, bringing the old school swag here. We want you all to join in as well. We got a YouTube chat that is always popping. We also want you to follow us on Instagram, @redcorner_blue corner. But we got to talk about what happened last night with the new batch of college football playoff rankings, and we finally have a little movement toward the top. Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan stayed the same, but Washington jumps into the top 4 while Florida State slides back to number 5. We will address some of what happened at the 4 and 5 spot here, but I just want to address Ohio State and Michigan. Buckeyes at 2, Michigan at 3. Are you okay with how they're ranked?
Listen, I'm going to just, I don't care. I don't care. We started the show. What I mean I don't care is it's decided this weekend on Saturday. That's what I mean. Quite simply, like this is the playoff game. This is the national championship game. And it's a fair question to ask. But guess what? If you win, you're good. If you lose, you're putting it in someone else's hand. That's what also makes this the greatest rivalry in all of sports, right? The number 2 versus number 3. No matter which way you shake it out, the winner gets in. Quite simple to me, JP.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. We could extrapolate this out to a larger conversation about what the committee values and how they view certain teams. We would say that Michigan has been a more dominant team, and they've played 7 common opponents, I believe, this year. And so if you want to go off of what they've done versus those opponents and think resume's pretty equal outside of Notre Dame, then I think you can make a case for Michigan at 2. If you're a team that really, or a committee that really says that you have to value what Ohio State did against Notre Dame, I think Michigan should be much lower on these rankings. Not to say they're not a great team, but if that's what we're doing with the resume. But to your point, none of this matters. We ain't going to be talking about this after the game. We're going to be talking about who won that game and who lost that game and what it means for either one of those programs. But for the program that loses the game on Saturday, do you think that there is a chance that they can make it into the college football playoff?
There is a chance. Is it a good chance? That's probably the better question. And I don't know if it's a good chance or not. There's a lot of teams. I mean, we're going deep down the list here of teams that could potentially make a strong push here. Bama still plays Georgia. What happens in that game? Oregon and Washington, that's a rematch. What happens in that game? Florida State now without their starting quarterback, their star quarterback, probably playing Louisville in the ACC championship. What happens in that game? I mean, this is the issue here, but for the loser. But it's also, again, to me, it goes back to the game. Like speculation, we can do it, right? We will do it. But really, this is all about Saturday. You don't. If you lose, you're putting it in other people's hands, and that's why both teams. You have got to be at your absolute best for 60 minutes this weekend. If you win, you're good. If you lose, I don't know. I don't know if you get in.
Yeah, I would say there's an outside chance for the loser of this team to get, or this game to get in. I agree with you that it's in somebody else's hands, but I think that with the committee keeping Michigan at 3, I think that their path would be nearly impossible. Ohio State being at 2, I think says something about what they value in terms of the resume there. And if this is a close loss on the road, I think that they could, depending on whatever else happens, talk themselves into it. I would not like to see it because I think 3 years in a row of getting beat by your rival, and even what we saw last year where they got blown out, regardless of how they did in the CFP, I think you really got to earn it, and this is a game where you earn it. So it'll be interesting, no doubt.
Even if you get in, like if you're Ohio State, I agree with you. So Ohio State has the better path, and that's what these rankings really tell you. Is the committee is saying there's a backdoor chance that's more likely for Ohio State than Michigan. But if you're a Buckeye fan, like you'll have a bad taste in your mouth. Like, what does it even mean if you do lose this one and get to the playoffs, right? They don't want to hear that. You don't want to see that either, right?
I'd prefer not to. And quite frankly, if they won the national title, I think a lot of people would feel perfectly fine. But again, you come up empty. They did it last year. It didn't make anything feel that good.
It's hard for me to say if you lose this game that you do win a national title, right?
I agree with
the
that.
winner of this game, to me, because of the way the Big Ten is this year, I believe the winner of this game will prove that they're a national title contender. But we will cover more of that throughout the show. As a reminder, we are a fully interactive show, so go ahead and scan that QR code or go to watchstadium.com/submit to send us your videos and your questions. And guess who sent us a game prediction? None other than Big Ten Network sideline reporter Brooke Fletcher.
Okay, it's time for my pick. This is really tough because both teams have similar strengths, but let's start with Michigan. They have one of the best defenses in the entire country. It was on full display versus Maryland last week. J.J. McCarthy struggled a little bit, which is a little bit of a concern for me. Obviously, I think he's going to address those this week at practice, and he'll be ready to go this weekend, but it's going to be tough going up against an Ohio State defense that's really starting to find their stride, playing at a championship level. As far as offenses go, both have a lot of depth here, but Ohio State, I just feel like they're so balanced. When you have Emeka Egbuka, he is starting to get 100% alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. It's going to be really hard for this Michigan secondary to go up against that. And Travion Henderson, that guy is a stud in the backfield. Not to discredit Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, what they're doing, that's going to be tough for this defense to stop those guys there. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to go with Ohio State. I just feel like they're really playing at a championship level right now. Sometimes it's just ascending at the right time. Things are starting to click. They're really balanced on offense, starting to click on defense. And not to mention Ryan Day, he is 20-1 on the road during his tenure at Ohio State. So I think that's going to continue on Saturday.
Thanks, Brooke, and be sure to check her out on Stadium Clubhouse. It's weekdays at 6:30 Eastern. Everyone will be chiming in on the game, and look at this series when the stakes are high. It's tied when both teams are ranked, and the Buckeyes lead 12, 11, and 2 when they're both in the top 10. But you can throw all the records out the window when the players step on the field. And today we're joined by two guys who played in the game. Repping the blue corner, we got Marcus Ray, who is a safety from 95 to 98, a national champ. And on the other side for the red corner, we got Bobby Carpenter, who is a linebacker from 02 to 05, also a national champion. So Jake's the only one without a championship ring on this panel today. But I want to skip all the pleasantries. I want to get right into it. And I'll start with you, Marcus, because you guys have the upper hand as of right now in this rivalry. But take us back to when you were a player. What are your most vivid memories of this rivalry?
Well, some of my most vivid memories was just us underachieving, but knowing we had a great football team and we had the opportunity to salvage our season against the Buckeyes. They were always super talented. But we felt like if we went in their stadium or they played us in our house, that we would beat them. We always just felt like Ohio State knew that if, we punched them in the mouth here and there, that they would crack. And just being honest, but we always have respect for the rivalry. I'm a Columbus guy, so I grew up wanting to be a part of this rivalry. So, we were 3-1 against them, but we won 3 straight. So, and we shouldn't have lost my senior year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we're all Ohio guys here, so we have a unique perspective on the game. But, Bobby, I'd ask you the same question. What are your most vivid memories here?
Well, my first memory was going to the game and one that Marcus played in back in '98. And thinking when he got booed, like, how the heck are you dealing with this being a Central Ohio guy, leaving and then going up there? And then probably the most vivid memory was you'd like to think it's the wins, but it's probably the loss in '03 when we had a lot of things set up for us. It was ready to go and have success, and we really didn't play all that well. And credit to some of the seniors on the team, led by John Navarre. They weren't about to lose 3 in a row, especially at home. And so I'd like to think it was the wins, but usually, Joshua, the worst parts of your life you remember a little more, and the feeling after that game in the locker room was not a great one in '03.
Marcus, you kind of talked about the belief. You said we believed we were going to win anytime we stepped on that field. And I think that has an interesting dynamic this game this year, because for the past 2 decades prior, Ohio State had dominated that. They'd earned the right to almost have a naive belief that no matter what happened, they were going to come out on top. Now the tables have turned a little bit, and Michigan has earned that right. How much do you think belief in each other and their ability to pull out a victory comes into play in this game?
I think the guys on the roster now have experienced some success. And in the era where you played, Jake, Ohio State dominated, as you stated. And I almost thought at one point Michigan was never going to beat the Buckeyes again. So Ohio State didn't hope to win that game. They expected to win it. And so I think the guys in the Michigan locker room expect to win the football game. And there's guys who have played significant minutes and played a role in those last 2 victories. And I think it really helped when Michigan called off sick in 2020, where they just gave themselves another year to regroup and go into this rivalry. And now I think Ohio State is probably going into that game a little more worried than they have in the last 20 years.
All right, well, let's talk overall expectations for this game. We know they're 2 of the best teams in the country. I think a lot of the conversation is going to be around quarterback play, where you have J.J. McCarthy, who is a really talented quarterback. The last couple of weeks, he hasn't looked like himself. And Kyle McCord, who's going to be getting his first start in this iteration of the game here. When you start to boil down the quarterbacks, who's going to have to rise up more for their team to get the win? Bobby, I'll start with you.
I think there's probably a little bit more that's been on Kyle McCord all year. The emergence of Travion Henderson the last couple of weeks, looking really healthy since he came back from that rib injury helps. And, we talk about the quarterback play. To me, neither one of those guys has to play exceptional. They really just can't turn the football over. It'll be more of a situation of the guy who makes the least amount of mistakes. I think both of these teams want to get the running game going. They want to play a field position battle, which is typically what happens here. And I was talking with Jim Tressel earlier this week about it, and his thing is like, just don't make mistakes, lean into the running game, and if you do that, you'll put yourself in a position to win. And then, you know what, maybe you do have to make a play in the final minutes of the game, but don't lose the game before you have an opportunity to close that thing out.
Marcus, what are your thoughts on the quarterback battle from the Michigan side?
I think for J.J. McCarthy, it's going to be rely on the running game, like Michigan did. I think that was a strategic move they did against Penn State, where they ran the ball 30-something times to close out the game. That was by design. And then secondly, JJ has started in this rivalry. He has a win under his belt as a starter. So I think for McCord, he has to prove that he can walk into the big house, kill the noise, play not a perfect game, but kind of like Bobby said, not really be a game manager, but he has to make good decisions. And it's easier said than done. Can he go in there and do what Dwayne Haskins did? Can he do what J.J. Barrett did? And I think that's something that you have to ask yourself. And Troy Smith and all the great ones that won in that stadium, is he good enough to do that? Justin Fields as well.
Real quick before we let you guys go, I think we've seen in these past 2 years, one player has stood out. Hassan Haskins in 2021, a legendary day. Last year, Mikey Sainristil had that key breakup versus Cade Stover. Marcus, why don't we start with you? Who's a player that you have your eye on that could be the difference maker in this game?
I think it's Donovan Edwards again. I think he's a guy that hasn't had the type of year that he wanted to have, but he was a breakout star in that game a year ago, and along with JJ being able to go vertical from time to time with the pass game. But I think it's Edwards. I think he's a guy that's hungry and humble, and things haven't gone his way playing behind Blake Corum. So look, that's a guy I think if he gets hot, he could be a game changer just like last year.
Bobby, who's your guy?
Yeah, Edwards was big last year. To me, I'm not necessarily going to go with, a skill position player. I'm going to go guard, center guard for Ohio State. We start talking about Jones, Hinsman, and Jackson. Michigan, the best part, I think, of their defense and probably their team are their tackles. You got Jenkins, Graham. They rotate a lot of big bodies through there. If they can get pushed in the pocket, affect Kyle McCord, and if they can impact that running game, it'll be a long day for Ohio State. So those guys may be underrated, maybe not the headliners, but I think that's where the game will be won and lost.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of consternation about either one of these offensive lines after really Ohio State all year, but the last couple performances for Michigan. So like usual, I think a lot of this does come down to the trenches, but we appreciate you joining us over here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. That's Marcus Ray. In the Blue Corner, former Michigan safety national champ, and that's Bobby Carpenter, former Ohio State linebacker, the best kind of linebackers, and national champ as well. Appreciate your time, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was awesome, but coming up, we have access to the scripts for the game, so find out how it all go down in Ann Arbor. That's in just a few.
And make sure you go over to thegamegivesback.com. Joshua and I are starting a fundraiser around the game, leveraging the emotion, the hatred, the passion of this rivalry to do some good. We're raising money for families to feed them and take care of their necessities this holiday season. So go ahead to thegamegivesback.com and stick around with us here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. And welcome in. Did you guys know that Joshua and I had serious acting skills? Did you know that?
I mean,
is there an Emmy in our future potentially?
Listen, two of the most talented actors you would ever see. Just shameless plug for myself and you.
This skit we did around the rivalry has blown up on social media, so make sure you head over to Instagram and follow us at @redcorner_blue corner. Pop a comment in, maybe give us a game prediction. See, maybe both of us win the award, but tell us which one really deserves the award. We would love to have you guys over on IG at @redcorner_blue corner. But there's been some speculation in football this year. I hear the conversation more than ever that the game is scripted.
Sure.
There's a script that gets handed out, and the game's already decided ahead of it. Don't worry. We got our hands on the script for the game this weekend. JP, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, so the first touchdown in this football game is going to be none other than Travion Henderson. The guy has been on fire since he's returned from his injury. He looks explosive. He looks to be the fastest player on any football field that he's on. And so I think that early on in this game, he's going to have touches and he's going to have opportunities to break a big one. That's my expectation. Then the first turnover of the game, of course, Mike Sainristil still on the Michigan side. He has been really good at getting his hands on the football, had a couple of picks against Maryland a week ago. He had that big PBU that you like to bring up from the game a year ago. I think he's going to continue some of that. Now, the halftime headline, what these teams are going to be doing at halftime, what the people are going to be talking about, defensive struggle. The game is tied at 10. I think this is a real possibility here. I think that either of these teams is going to be a feeling out process in the first half. And I think the defenses are going to be more adjusted than the offenses will be. So there'll be plenty of stops. I do think there's going to be some scoring, though. Then the breakthrough star, Denzel Burke. He's a guy who was maligned a year ago, did not play up to his caliber, and now we watch him this year. Has been one of the most shut down corners in the United States of America. People don't even really look his way. He's played with intensity. He's played with some pop, and I think that he can make an impact in this football game. And, of course, the deciding play. I go back to that PBU that you talk about. Cade Stover sitting there in the end zone. Well, how about the touchdown pass to Cade Stover to decide this game?
Look, the funny thing is as I look at your script and I look at my script, we are kind of on the same page. So let's go through my script and we'll see just some minor tweaks. So your first touchdown was Trey Henderson. Mine is Blake Corum. I think what we both see is there will not be too many explosive plays in this game. Both defenses are so talented. Michigan's going to get in the low red zone and do what they do, hand the ball to Blake Corum. The first turnover, you said it was Mikey Sainristil. I'm saying Kyle McCord is going to be the guy to throw an interception early in this game. Michigan's going to disguise coverage. They're going to get someone underneath Marvin Harrison Jr. McCord isn't going to see him. Michigan takes advantage of it. Our halftime headline, exactly the same. You had defensive struggle tied at 10. Mine said just defense leads the way. And, of course, for my breakout star on that same thought process, it's Chris Jenkins. I really could have picked a number at Kenneth Grant or Mason Graham. Someone in the interior of Michigan's defensive line is going to give the interior O-line for Ohio State hell. That's going to affect the ability to run the football, and they're going to walk the O-lineman right back into McCord's lap.
Jeez.
I'm building the story and the narrative here. The game-deciding play, similar to Notre Dame. It is a one-touchdown game, one-possession game. Ohio State has the ball with the chance to win it. They are driving. It is then fourth down. McCord is going to get under. He's going to get pressured by that D-line. It's going to be an errant throw. Michigan bats it down. Game over. Wolverines win.
I don't think that's how it's going to go, but I'm glad you had a little time to do your fan fiction over there. Congratulations to you. But we do have another game prediction here, so it's time to hear from Annie Agar.
All right, you guys, the game is here. I'm going to be making my prediction for the Ohio State-Michigan game. No meeting this week because it's such a serious game that Did you not just hear me? I said no meeting. Free Harbaugh. What is your problem? Well, I'm a Scorpio. Did you steal that sign too? You're just jealous because we have 1,000 wins. One was against a high school team, so we count wins against Michigan State. Anyway, as I was saying, the prediction. Have you seen C.J. Stroud? The only reason you beat us is because you were cheating. Oh yeah, I'm sure C.J. Stroud would have tackled Donovan Edwards. Do you guys want me to predict this game or not? How's your locker room doing? Is it falling apart yet? You know what I always say? A locker room is like a mom's bathing suit. You like to see it in one piece. That's from Ted Lasso. First you steal signs, now you're stealing jokes. Well, all right, my prediction for the Ohio State-Michigan game is 27 Ohio State, 24 Michigan.
All right, thank you, Annie Agar. And now I feel like it's time for me to address the Ohio State Buckeyes personally. Can I get my single here for this? Listen, guys, over the last 2 years, things have not gone very well. You could say that they've gone miserably. They invited you to Ann Arbor. They threw a party and really walked you up and down the field. This is something that cannot happen, but had the chance for redemption. You said, hey, come over to our house. And they did. They came in, they opened up your refrigerator, they stole your food, made a sandwich, closed the refrigerator, went over to the couch, kicked their feet up on your furniture, was running your television, tore your stuff up, and then they left. They left, and they thought nothing about it. They were entitled to do it. This is something that cannot happen. You have the opportunity to go up north and to get a win. You want the gold pants. It's what we're all in here for, right? You want these charms right here. Be legends. Be legendary this weekend.
Well done, well done. Now, that gives me the chance to address the Michigan Wolverines, and I'm going to start with a simple message. Nothing matters but what is in that locker room. Nothing else matters but what is on your sideline at 12 p.m. on Saturday. All year there has been noise. There's been outside noise. There's been controversy. There's been opinions. Of course, there's been suspensions. There's been predictions. None of that matters this weekend. There is going to be family in the stands, your wives, your girlfriends, your mom, your enemies are on the other sideline. Even that doesn't matter. There's a conversation from this game that will say, hey, the winner of this will win a conference title or go to the playoff berth and win a national championship. Even that doesn't matter. This is the conference title. This is the national championship. Nothing matters. I've heard this said a couple times. You work year-round for this game. I disagree. I say this game is the culmination of your life's work. For the guys in the locker room, you were born for this exact moment. Every trial, every test, every rep has prepared you for this. So know this, you are ready. Play as hard as you can, as fast as you can, as long as you can, and do not worry. Go Blue.
Now, notice how he said the only thing that matters is what's in the locker room, what's on the sideline. That means their head coach doesn't matter. So take that up there for your little pregame message as well. Want to check in on this poll real quick. Who's going to win the game on Saturday? 59% of you picked the wrong damn team, and that's perfectly fine that you feel that way. I just got an inkling that the Buckeyes are going to go up there and handle business. If not, I'm going to be a miserable mess on Monday.
We got a good,
I'm Joshua Perry. We'll see you next week.
Yo, what's happening, y'all? Welcome down to Rivals Down South. Welcome down. Welcome in. I may be directionally confused, but I'm not confused when it comes to football, okay? I know the game. I'm T-Bob Hebert. He is Chris Marler at Vern Funquist on Twitter. Catch him on Saturday Down South. Chris, what's going on, man? How we feeling today? Iron Bowl week, so you can tell probably I'm like an LSU guy. Chris by trade is an Alabama guy. What we got? We got the butterflies in the belly, a little juice in the veins. How are we feeling right now?
I mean, a little bit of all those things. It's been a very weird week. I think Bama fans and Auburn fans are on edge. I've had both fan bases get mad at me on Twitter already, and it's only Wednesday, so it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do there? But yeah, I'm pumped up, man. It's going to be a fun weekend.
And look, remember, if you want to get your comments in during the show, youtube.com/watchstadium is a great way to do so. And then if you want to be featured on the show, watchstadium.com/submit. You can send your videos in. Got a few things to get to today. Let's start with the new college football playoff rankings. And for the second week in a row, we got a change in the top four as Washington has jumped Florida State into the 4 spot. Now, I want to be clear. Obviously, Jordan Travis, in case you missed it, goes down for Florida State last week. But that is not why Washington jumped them, right? There's a lot of interesting conversation to be had about the Seminoles and what do they look like with Tate Rodemaker instead of Jordan Travis back there. But Washington jumped them because Washington should have jumped them. Washington has one of the best resumes in all of college football. I think they're now up to 4 ranked wins after the battle in Corvallis last week. What do you think, Chris? How does this top 6 look to you? Did they get it right?
Yeah, so I don't have an issue really with any of it. I think that you can make a case for every single position they put these teams in. I don't think that Florida State moved down because of the injury to Jordan Travis. I think it's spot on about that. I think if you're being honest with yourselves, like, it's hard to look at Pac-12 teams, I think, throughout like the last decade without having some sort of like bias against the conference. And you really you have to remove all that this year because it's arguably, and I think it is the best conference in all of college football this season. Look at like some of the teams they've had up there, and Washington going on the road in Corvallis is a very, very good win. Like you mentioned, 4 wins against ranked teams so far this year. They didn't score a point in the second half of that game against Oregon State and still managed to win that game. The one thing I do have a little bit of a concern with, like I think if Florida State wins out, they're still in. I don't think that's up for debate. The question I have is Oregon. I think they're a really, really good football team, but where are we ranking Oregon at and why? Is it because of the eye test? Is it because of the resume? Like what are we saying with them being at 6? Because I don't think that you could really there's not much that's moving in the top 8. It's been the same 8 teams for all 4 weeks, right? But I'm confused as to why Oregon is still at 6. Because I know, for what reason?
No, I mean, look, I'm kind of there with you. I feel like a bit of an Oregon truther, and it's weird because I feel like I'm setting myself up for failure because, I think they are a very good football team, right? But and so maybe they prove everybody right. But to your point, in terms of what's actually been done, everybody's hanging their hat on going into Utah and beating them badly, which is impressive, right? But that's a Utah team that's now lost 4 games. And outside of that, there's nothing that impressive. And answer me this. When is the last big game that Bo Nix won? Like when it really is it at Auburn when they beat Oregon? I mean, right? Like
you could make the case, man.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is Oregon's got to prove it to me this weekend. Okay. What do you do against Oregon State? And then what do you do against Washington? Because people basically act like Oregon beat Washington the first time around. And I just don't see it that way. I think we have an odd dynamic with the 1-loss teams where nobody wants to put Alabama over Texas because obviously Texas went into T-Town and won. So you feel bad about doing that. But then Texas hasn't looked that good as of late. And so you don't want to put them ahead of Oregon. So you have these kind of interconnecting elements that are leading to this 6, 7, 8 that I don't think I would quite rank it that way. But these things do have a way of playing themselves out. However, we do have a potential mega chaos scenario. And this would be Michigan being undefeated Big Ten champ, Florida State undefeated ACC champ, Alabama beats Georgia. They're a 12-1 SEC champ. Then Oregon beats Washington. 12-1 Pac-12 champ. You've got 12-1 Texas Big 12 champ. You'd have a 12-1 Georgia outside looking in, 12-1 Washington, 11-1 Ohio State. At that point, you clearly see the need for the 12-team playoff.
I want to go on record by saying that's not gonna happen. Like I don't think it's gonna happen. I love being able to talk about it. The first thing I think of when I see this is really like one of two things. One, Georgia wouldn't get in at 12-1, but how many of the teams ahead of them would they beat? You could argue all of them, right? Especially if they got a chance to play Alabama again. We've already seen that scenario play out 2 years ago. Now, here's the thing. You already mentioned at the top of the show, I'm a Bama guy, and I will. It's one of my many flaws. I will tell you up front. If Bama goes 12-1, Texas goes 12-1, you're arguing who deserves to get in because Texas hasn't been playing that well as of late. I'll tell you today, I think it's November 23rd or whatever day it is, 10 days out from the SEC championship game. If that happens, Texas has to be in over Alabama, and you have to do it because you're setting a precedence for the future of college football. You have to, because you're setting a precedence for the future of college football, saying, listen, the games don't matter. Then why schedule those games? Go play. I don't want to say New Mexico State because for some teams it's a very difficult team to play apparently this time of year. But why play those games? I will also tell you flat out, if you ask me that question with this scenario between the hours of 8 p.m. on December 2nd, if Bama wins that game, and 12 noon the next day, you will have a very, very different answer out of me, guaranteed.
I do get it. And I have always felt that way. But I'll be damned if there isn't some nuance that kind of muddies the water here in this specific situation. It clearly looks like a better Alabama team than what was in that game. And it looks like a Texas team that is kind of scraping by at this point. But let's see how this plays out, and we'll cross those bridges when we get there. There's been some sound floating around on the internet. Obviously, look, it is. And look, if you want to vote, what's the best part of Thanksgiving, guys? Turkey's been pouring out. We got stuff and football, family, dessert. I think I'm kind of on the football side of this equation. Go ahead and scan the QR code. Go vote. Jayden Daniels, though, there's been some sound. It's Heisman season, okay? And here in LSU country, everybody's got their swords out, battling for JD5 to win the Heisman. He deserves it. He's got the best numbers and everything. Well, battle lines are being drawn. And yesterday, Washington State quarterback Ryan Leaf entered the fray. Here's what he had to say about who should take home the most prestigious individual trophy in sports.
Jayden Daniels was at Oregon or at Washington, he would be the backup. Those two have to be thoroughly in front of Jayden Daniels. Plain and simple. Take nothing away from the young man. He is awesome to watch. But it's just plain and simple. That's where we are at right now in terms of the Heisman conversation. If it's not simply Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. right now, alone at the top, I don't know exactly where else we're looking. Period.
I mean, okay. So look, before we get into the actual argument itself, I would like to commend Ryan Leaf on the incredible debate technique of not contextualizing anything, just being this is what I think, and it's plain and simple. I don't even I don't need to expound on it. I don't need to give you any numbers. You just have to understand it's plain and simple. Right? Clearly Jayden Daniels should not be with Michael Penix and Bo Nix.
It's like the people on Twitter that make the argument that's this is what I believe. And honestly, it's not even particularly close. It's no, it is. It is absolutely close. And you bring up this whole argument. This is my favorite part about this. It's Jayden Daniels, I think that he's partially correct. There are two people in this Heisman race that need to be considered, and they're the two people on the left-hand side of the screen, depending on where you're looking at this. Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix. That's it. Bo Nix has been phenomenal. It's the weirdest argument to make because all three of these guys are transfers. All three of them have found newfound immense success at their new place. So why we're even bringing this up in the era of the transfer portal, he would be a backup. First off, you don't know that. Second off, Jayden Daniels left the conference these two are thriving in and did so when he came in as a true freshman, started as a true freshman, put up 17 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in that conference, then left to go succeed wildly in a conference that guy in the middle, Bo Nix, could not succeed in. So what is the argument it's the weirdest argument, and he's wrong on so many factual levels.
Yeah, it's So we're in agreement, Chris. Like, Bo Nix and Jayden Daniels are the candidates. Michael Penix Jr. is still awesome, but he has statistically fallen off the pace. You have to be astronomical to keep pace in this race. Now, Jayden does have a pretty large overall statistical edge, but obviously Nix has the resume edge. And so Nix is going to be featured over these next 2 weeks, right? He hasn't played the schedule, but they're undefeated. Or excuse me, but but they've got the one loss. And if they go and they win the Civil War against a very good Oregon State team, and if they go and get immediate revenge against a very good Washington team, and he plays great during those games, I think that'll put him over the top. I think he will outpace Jayden Daniels. But for Ryan Leaf, who I really love and does a great job, but for Ryan Leaf to say just plain and simple is the height of absurdity. Also, like, there's flawed logic in the whole backup idea because none of these guys would unseat the incumbent, right? It's like the old boxing adage. If you're the challenger, you got to beat the champ. You're not going to get a decision. Like you got to thoroughly beat them. And none of these guys are coming and beating that. And beyond that, let's see where they go in the NFL draft, Because, look, we can all accept it's probably Caleb Williams and Drake May still 1 and 2. But I feel today that Jayden Daniels will be selected ahead of Bo Nix in this upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the other thing, like the last thing I'll say on it, is the Heisman's become such a "what have you done for me lately" award, where it's like whoever is in the driver's seat the very last week is going to win. And I'm not saying this is sour grapes, but I'm saying this because that 2018 season, Tua led the entire year. Like, he was putting up 300-yard games with like a quarter and a half of football, went to the Auburn game and put up 5 touchdowns in that game, and then went to the SEC championship game and played a top 5 defense and got hurt. And all of a sudden it was like, dude, have you seen this Kyler Murray guy? It's like, yeah, he's been doing it all year. How all of a sudden does he drastically move forward? We hadn't been talking about it. It's very weird. It's like the most like prisoner of the moment award there is in sports.
And let's remember this. You tell me that Bo Nix will just flat out beat Jayden Daniels out? Bo Nix is amazing, but I don't think he has the raw talent that JD5 has. How about this stat? Jayden Daniels has accounted for 82 plays of 20 yards or more. 82. Second in the country is Caleb Williams at 61. And then Penix and Dart check in at 59 apiece. He is the most rawly talented and best player in the country. Will he win the Heisman? We will see. Coming up next, Egg Bowl time, baby. That's right, deviled eggs on the menu and Egg Bowl on the television. And finally, well, something that Lane Kiffin thinks we should all agree on. Coming up next. What's happening, y'all? Welcome back to Rivals Down South. Check this out, dude. Look at that. That's Mississippi State interim coach Greg Knox riding a four-wheeler through the locker room last week before they beat up on Southern Miss. And look, we all know that. Look, that's good interim vibes right there. Now, if you watch the State Southern Miss game, or if you didn't watch, you might have seen the final score and be like, oh my God, they figured it out offensively. Not really. The offense remains a disaster, but hey, the Bulldogs got the win. They're one way away from going bowling. And now, Starkville tomorrow night on Thanksgiving, the Egg Bowl is back. And Chris, this is why I love the Egg Bowl. It is the purest rivalry because it's just about hate. It never has championship relevance. It doesn't have any national relevance. It is literally just about hating the other school and wanting to crash them and step on top of them and beating the other community. It's two rednecks battling in the woods, and it makes my heart so happy. And that's exactly what this is. Like, Ole Miss has everything in front of them. They're going for that 10-win season. Mississippi State's just out here trying to ruin their good time. And Lane Kiffin is not a fan of the cowbells, saying, we've been playing the cowbells on the loudspeakers very loud during practice the entire time, which is annoying. I could use a history lesson on why that's not disallowed. And he was later informed that, look, fans are allowed to responsibly ring their cowbells as long as the team is not approaching the line of scrimmage or taking a snap. Well, obviously nobody follows that. And Kiffin says, well, that's a dumb rule. Nobody's going to follow that. Kiffin can be right about that being a dumb rule, but I love cowbells. It is what makes college football so weird and so unique. To try to complain and take out cowbells, I hope Lane Kiffin just puts some bad juju in the air and he gets hit with some Starkville voodoo.
I mean, like, listen, I'll tell you right now as a Bama fan, nothing good ever happens for Alabama and Starkville. There is Starkville voodoo. It's not like Jordan-Hare voodoo, but there is some Starkville voodoo. I will also tell you that, like, it cracks me up that the SEC even wrote this law. Like, at some point, let's all just have honest conversations with each other. Like, this whole thing of like, hey, listen, you're allowed to have the cowbells, but you better be responsible with them. Because, if there's one thing about fans in general and SEC fans especially, responsibility is something they take very, very seriously, especially on game day. So, yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to say I'm with Kiffin, but, like, you're also a double-digit favorite in this rivalry game. Why don't you just, like, for once before a game, just be quiet, put your head down, go to work, and then come out with victory? Because they have a really, really good chance of, like, doing something that very few Ole Miss teams have done, and that's go, like, not only win 10 games, which would be the second time in 3 years, but win 10 games with your only 2 losses to Bama and Georgia. That's a huge year for them.
It's a massive year. And what difference a year can make, man? Because last year at this time, you had an Ole Miss that had completely fallen apart. You had a Mike Leach Mississippi State team that had solidified, went on to win this game in Oxford. They finished third in the SEC West. They finished the season 9-4. Ole Miss is in tatters, and now just one Thanksgiving later, everything is flipped on its head. Mike Leach tragedy. Mississippi State is coachless, directionless, in complete disarray, not even bowl eligible. And here Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss are back as hot as ever with a better quarterback than ever and about to do something for the second time in school history, which is win 10 games in the regular season. Absolute wild 365 for the two teams involved here. The Iron Bowl, but okay, to be clear, it does feel like Ole Miss clearly the favorite here. And when you look at the Iron Bowl, it's kind of the same situation. The visiting team, Alabama's in flow right now. They seem to be improving week in and week out. Jalen Milroe's playing the best football of his entire career. And Auburn is coming off of one of the most perplexing losses we've seen all season long, as they didn't just lose to New Mexico State. Jerry Kill kicked Hugh Freeze's ass.
Yeah, perplexing is not the word I used to describe it because it was very enjoyable. But, I mean, because it's not often you're a 25-point favorite and then you lose by 21. I think, like, my favorite part was, like, people asking me afterwards, like, hey, what is the worst loss for an SEC team? Is it Bama losing to Monroe, LSU Troy? Is it Georgia State Tennessee? And it's like probably the one where they were favored by 25 and lost by 21. Because it was like, I looked at the box score and I was like, surely there's got to be, they were -3 in turnovers. Or had like fumbled a punt inside the 10. Nope, just got their ass kicked. Just got straight up demolished the entire time. This game, I don't think that game matters at all for the Iron Bowl. I would almost bet any amount of money that if you were telling me an outcome that Bama is not going to beat Auburn by 21 points, and they might not even score 31 on them like New Mexico State did. I think this is like a throwaway game from the week before. And maybe it's what all Auburn fans immediately rushed to go say in defense was Hugh Freeze must have been preparing for the Iron Bowl. So there is Jordan Hare voodoo. That's a real thing. It's a 10-year anniversary of the kick six. But I will also say, and I don't feel like it's being arrogant, I think it's just being honest, you would have to hope that some sort of voodoo happens if you're an Auburn fan, because that's seemingly the only way they're going to win this game.
No, look, we've talked about it in the past. Auburn, they're not unlike the Taliban or any insurgent kind of natives throughout military history, right? Where you can be this great empire and you can be more powerful and you can think that you're flattening their communities and like crush them to smithereens, but they just believe. They just have a belief, and they always come crawling out the plains for revenge, right? And so maybe because look, granted, what was it? 2 years ago when Bryce Young and Jordan Hare had to go down the field, what was it, like a full 90 yards in the last 30 seconds? It was 97. A magical drive. And okay, 87, and that was an Alabama team that was arguably better than this one, an Auburn team that was arguably worse than this one. So we've seen it before. I did love seeing, Chris, that Jalen Milroe actually said that he went and studied that 2021 performance out of Bryce Young, saying, quote, "It shows nothing but how great of a leader Bryce Young is, his mental toughness, willing to lead the offense through every situation, and then our whole team as a whole. They showed mental toughness, they showed grit, they showed we can finish." Well, Jalen Milroe, this is your opportunity. For what it's worth, I think this Alabama team wins big. Like you said, I don't know if they cover the full 21, but this is an Alabama team that is unlike that Bryce Young one because they're kind of embracing that underdog role, right? And I think in an odd, paradoxical way that almost makes them more dangerous in this game than it has the last couple of years.
I'm still trying to get over the Taliban reference. But I will tell you this. I think you, of all people, will appreciate this more than anybody. I've always said this about Auburn fans, and I do mean it in a positive way. The quote from The Hangover that reminds me of Auburn fans more than anything else is when, what's his name, Ed Helms looks at Zach Galifianakis. He goes, "You are literally too stupid to insult." And he goes, "Thank you." That's Auburn. Like, you will never bring their mood down. You will never bring their mood down. Hats off to them. So.
Still to come, Would You Rather Wednesday Thanksgiving edition when Rivals Down South return. Welcome back to Rivals Down South. It's Would You Rather Wednesday Thanksgiving edition. Chris Marler, would you rather fried turkey or wild turkey?
I don't. Like, turkey's gone wild? That's a whole different story. Like, I would say fried turkey.
No, hey, now. I'm guessing like the hard liquor. I would say I'm more of a wine guy. Like tomorrow when I'm cooking, making the turkey, basting, I'm going to have a couple of beautiful bottles of red on tap. Green bean casserole or cranberries?
Green bean casserole. That's not even close. Yeah. Not even close.
I know. The only cranberries I like are, zombie and linger are both excellent.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sweet potatoes or mashed potatoes?
Mashed potatoes.
No, again, this one just feels kind of chalky, right? I mean, mashed potatoes are quite literally the glue of the Thanksgiving meal. They're the guy that holds everybody together. Pumpkin pie or pecan pie?
Pecan pie. Pumpkin pie is trash. I just don't get it. There's so little to it, and it's just so gross. The consistency of it's disgusting. It's like something you would step in without shoes on in the yard. It's gross.
No, it does feel kind of squishy, right? Like when mud goes through your toes. That would be how a pumpkin pie feels. Like pecan with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. You kidding me? Okay, would you rather watch Thanksgiving football or New Year's Day football?
New Year's Day, hands down. I like the idea of Thanksgiving football, but let's be honest with ourselves. How many times can I watch the Lions lose by 7 to 11 points?
Thanksgiving football, full belly, full of drinks, so happy. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you on the other side.